What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is NCIS Season 16, Episode 22, and Execution. So this is, of course, wrapping up the last episode. Again, little disappointed. I mean, they might still, I guess, talk about some of the stuff that happened in this one for the final two episodes, but I was really hoping that this might end up being something that was going to be brought up, kind of stretched out over these last four, instead of just these two episodes were done and now another episode, and then probably a final episode that's going to lead to some cliffhanger that'll lead into season 17. Because if so, it's just going to be such the NCIS formula. And I don't know, I'm kind of sick of the formula. I want to see them change it up a little bit instead of having the last episode be something intense and then cliffhanger to be continued. I would prefer it to be, how about we just tell a 4 episode story about, you've been building it up, this whole slush fund, and then we find out maybe there's these hitmen being paid off with the slush fund. Who could it possibly be? Trying to figure out more about that. Maybe at the end of this episode we find out it's these judges that are basically vigilantes, carrying out justice where the justice system fails. I don't know. I feel like this could have been an interesting 4 episodes to tackle, but instead they sort of smushed it all into 2 episodes, so they have to tackle so many different things. And I feel like, I don't know, some of these stories I would have preferred to see get more time. Like, for instance, Vance and Mallory. It just kind of happens. They talk about the feelings a little bit, and then it's done. And don't get me wrong, not something I'm super interested in. It's kind of cliche. In fact, it's almost like they wrote these lines out of a cliche book. I actually had feelings for you. I was doing a job and I fell for you. I'm like, all these stupid cliches, why? All at once. But yeah, this is something that if we had seen it throughout the season, and then what happened, I would have felt a lot more for this. I would have felt a lot more for that romance and the fact that it fell apart, and then all of a sudden she joins up with the judge and becomes a hitman for them to get some money to get out of town. I would have felt a lot more for this story if they devoted more time to it. With Gibbs, he gets targeted by these judges because of this, what he did to avenge his family, killing the guy that killed his family. The judges somehow find out about that, and they decide to consider him guilty and get him killed because of it. Thankfully, Mallory was the hit woman who took on the assassination, or Gibbs would be dead. But yeah, that story could have been interesting because the team finds out about it in this episode, but then that's about it. They talk about it at the end a little bit. Do you think we should bring it up to Gibbs? And they're like, what? Oh, well, Pedro Rodriguez. Who? Basically saying we're not going to talk to him about it. And, I don't know. I feel like that could have been something else interesting to tackle over these 4 episodes. The team dealing with this new information, finding out that Gibbs did this. I don't think it's going to really change their opinion of him, because who wouldn't want to avenge their family? And I will say something else that on that same topic, Gibbs talking to the judge about it, I felt like could have been a more interesting conversation if there was more time to devote to it. Because Gibbs calls him out on it. He even has that scene where he pulls out the gun. He's like, here, if you want to do it, shoot me. Because he's basically calling him out and saying, look, we're different. I did what I did to avenge my family, and I pulled the trigger myself. I took responsibility. You're essentially, whenever the law fails you, you're getting other people to do your dirty work for you. You're having people murdered because you, as a judge, feel like you don't have enough power. It's essentially you exerting your power in another way. That would have been a more interesting concept if it wasn't so quickly rushed through at the end, whenever Gibbs is talking to him about the whole thing. There's one other thing that I felt like could have taken more time. Oh, finding out about these judges. It was just, boom, right at the beginning. Oh, by the way, here's your bad guys. It's the judge and these other 4 judges. They're hiring these hit people to go and kill people. There you go. Problem or mystery solved. I don't know. I feel like this would have been more interesting if it had been stretched out for longer. Deacon could have been an interesting villain to have if it was stretched out for longer, but it was just these 2 episodes. So I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I liked the episode. I was invested. I was enjoying it, but I feel like it could have been better. I feel like it could have been done better if they devoted enough time to it, but they didn't. It just felt like, we gotta quickly rush these 2 episodes, finish up this story so then we can get to these last 2 episodes, which are going to be about something totally different. I'm guessing Ziva's probably going to be involved. I'm guessing Sloane's daughter is probably going to be involved. That's only because the last episode is titled Daughters. Literally no other reason. But, like, I like those stories, but I feel like I would have preferred maybe if they connected to this story somehow, or maybe if we just sort of put those on the back burner for now and then tackled it a bit more, or even devoted time, because if you got 4 episodes to deal with this one story, yeah, you probably have a little bit of time for filler. So maybe tell some of these stories while you're telling this one as well. I don't know. I feel like this could have been done better. Honestly, just popped into my head. Why not have where, maybe Faith, she's getting sued for something. Like maybe she makes a mistake at her job, or maybe she isn't able to save somebody at her job, and so she's getting sued for it, and the family is accusing her of, killing whoever it was that she failed to save, and so the judges decide to try to take her out. Now you've tied her into this story too, and it becomes much more interesting. But I don't know. As it stands, I liked it, but I see the potential for so much better, and because of that, I'm a little disappointed. But with all that being said, on to the next episode. See you there in a sec. Now, episode 23, Lost Time. So this one was okay. Still just kind of, I don't know, a little disappointed again that it's just kind of a random episode. They are bringing elements from the past few episodes, which is nice, because sometimes NCIS just tends to be episode by episode, and then some, like I was talking about earlier this season, how it felt like Gibbs was trying to grow him as an agent, but excuse me, but instead of having that growth be throughout the season, it was he would grow, and then a few episodes later he'd be back to where he was, but then he'd grow that episode, but then he'd be back to where he was. And that's kind of the problem when you have a show that doesn't really do a running storyline and instead just does episodes. Sometimes they don't tie together very well. I think that's one thing that, for me personally, whenever the argument comes to Friends and How I Met Your Mother, which one's better, I always tend to prefer How I Met Your Mother. I love both of the shows, so don't get me wrong. But I like how the story connects in How I Met Your Mother better than it does in Friends. They'll have stuff that does connect in Friends, but they do make references to stuff that happens in the future, and then like, oh yeah, we'll talk about that story later, and then they do talk about that story. So I don't know, I like how the story does connect together. And NCIS is not a show that does that, and it was doing that in this one. It was bringing elements from what Gibbs has been going through. At first, I wasn't sure how I felt about it, because normally we don't see Gibbs being vulnerable. But it does kind of make sense why. He has been through a lot, and a lot of it has been very personal for him. And he burned Rule 10, saying don't make it personal. So he's kind of in a crisis right now. He's kind of trying to figure out what to do next. Like, he just burned one of his rules. That's not something Gibbs would ever do, but yet here he is. So, yeah, I thought it was kind of an interesting thing to tackle. Talking about the possibility of retirement. There's also talk about, like, he wanted to turn himself in at one point. So there's a lot of different things going on with Gibbs right now, and I like how they're handling it. They're treating it with respect. They are taking some time to actually talk about it in this episode, which I guess is possibly going to be brought up in the next one. I don't know for sure, but I assume that this is all leading to something. I just don't know what. But ultimately, yeah, I liked where they took that story with Gibbs. It was kind of random to have, to have that one couple fighting, and then Gibbs kind of like bashes the guy's head in because he was about to beat up his girlfriend. I don't know. I did feel like that was a little too on the nose. Like, what would people do without someone like you, Gibbs? That was a little too on the nose for me. A little too much of a. You made your point. I liked what I forget her name, but the woman that he talks to, kind of a therapist type of person. But some of what she was saying to him, I felt like she made that point of, look, there's no need to turn yourself in. You've still got a job to do type of thing. As far as the case is concerned, little hard to buy. This one woman posing as the wife of the guy that died. Once the real wife showed up, my mind went to, wait a minute, did they not verify she was who she said she was? Like, did they really just bring her in and didn't check ID, didn't check any of that? Just like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll just buy that this is his wife. I don't know. It feels like that would be a little too difficult to pull off in the real world. Like, I don't think you'd be able to impersonate somebody's wife, especially when you're in the house with a bat when the house has been completely torn up. Like I couldn't stretch my disbelief far enough to buy that they fell for something like that. But ultimately they did end up catching her. So, long story short, I mean, the case itself was okay. It just, that was a little bit too much of a leap in logic. I was hoping once things started wrapping up, I'm like, okay, so there's still a lot of time left. So what's going on? And so whenever Torres drops the woman off and she's like, you've done more than you can ever know, and like gave him a big hug, I'm just like, okay, so she's evil, but why? Why is she involved? And then all of a sudden a woman pulls up and she's like, I'm so I'm Lori Wilson or whatever. I'm just like, oh, that's what they're going for here? But how? How? That doesn't make sense. Anyways, but yeah, all in all, decent episode. Of course, it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger leading into this final episode. Don't know if Fornell has been shot or if something medically has happened to him. I feel like Fornell ends up in the hospital a lot, though. But yeah, I guess we'll see where this story is going ultimately. Don't know what it's going to tie into. If anything at all this season has been building up to this last episode, or if it's kind of going to be what happened last season, where all of a sudden they just throw some story at us and it's like it ends on a cliffhanger. I'm almost positive it's going to end on a cliffhanger. I'm like 95% sure it's going to be a cliffhanger, but I hope at least some of the stuff they've been building up, some of the stuff they've been talking about, some of the morals, some of the stuff with Ziva, with Sloane's daughter, I hope this ties in somehow. I hope it doesn't just, it's not just some random case pops up and then they got to solve it and then it ends on a cliffhanger. That would be ridiculous. But anyways, with all that being said, that's it for this episode. On to the finale. See you there. And finally, the season finale, episode 24, Daughters. So, for the most part, I don't know, didn't really connect with this one like I wanted to. And don't get me wrong, like, I get the idea. I like the fact that they did bring up a lot of, I mean, it was personal. It's Fornell, it's his daughter. First of all, we'll say a little bit of a little bit of a bad start because, of course, the end of last episode, you need to get to the hospital. It's Fornell. And you're just like, oh God, what happened to Fornell? Is he okay? Is he okay? And so they open up this one. You got these two random kids driving. This girl in the back. It's going to be okay, Fornell. Just hold on. I'm just like, okay, so they're not showing us who it is. They're being very vague about this. So is it his daughter or is it just somebody else named Fornell? And then sure enough, it's his daughter. I'm just like, okay. Her name is Emily. What friends call each other by their last names? Yeah, okay, Gibbs and Fornell call each other, but they're like, it's kind of like a different generation. These are younger kids in college. College kids don't call each other by their last name unless it's something like, like my middle name is Brock. I was called Brock by some Pokemon fans. Some of my friends that were Pokemon fans. That makes sense. Why are they going to call her Fornell except to be like, oh, we got to keep them in suspense, guys. They don't know who it is yet. It's Emily. Oh my gosh. It's stupid. I don't know. That was kind of dumb. But ultimately, we find out she overdosed on something or was drugged or something like that. So they're like, oh no, did she get spiked? And so they're looking into that. Turns out she actually was on some stuff, but it turned out to be counterfeit. And so they find the guy that gave her dealer the counterfeit drug that spun her out of control or, messed with her. And so ultimately, that's kind of all that happened this episode. The guy we didn't hear the name. We didn't hear who gave this guy his pills. But he just was talking about like, oh my gosh, he's a bad dude. So I don't know if that's who's trying to kill Gibbs at the end of the episode or if something completely different is going on. But yeah, for most of it, it was okay. It wasn't super interesting to me. There were just a lot of scenes that, I don't know, I wasn't really connecting with. You know, like the stuff with Gibbs seeing Diane, and then the scene with Farnell talking to Diane. Something about it just didn't really sit right with me. The scene with Farnell and Diane was okay. Like, I liked the fact that she was like, look, you're just trying to do too much, just be there for her. I like that. That was a good scene. But the rest of it was like, I don't know, was she just basically, like, at the end of the episode, she's like, you needed a kick in the pants to get going on this case. But for most of the episode, it felt like she was trying to push him to be like, go kill this guy if you can't get him through the law. You know, go. I don't know. It didn't seem like a kick in the pants. It seemed more like trying to push him to extremes that he doesn't want to go to. So I just wasn't really connecting with those scenes because I didn't really agree with them, and I don't know. Sometimes they tried to play it off as being funny, and it just wasn't coming off as funny to me. You know, like when Tobias finds out, he starts like busting out laughing like it's hilarious. And then Casey, the scene where he's in the elevator and she's like, "Oh, I thought this was one of your elevator talks, but there's nobody in there, so I'm just gonna close my eyes until you go away." Shut up, you're not funny. But I don't know. They tried to play it off for laughs sometimes. Sometimes they tried to play it off for drama. I just wasn't really feeling it until the scene at the end. That kind of wrapped it all up nicely, but it didn't really reflect what was going on the rest of the episode. So I'm still up in the air about that. It did. I will say though, I did kind of laugh almost out of irony because this entire episode he's been seeing his dead wife, you know, and so he's thinking he's going crazy. So then she leaves, and then all of a sudden he hears something banging upstairs, and he's just like, "What now?" And I'm thinking, okay, Gibbs, she's not physical, so she wouldn't be bumping stuff around. But then Ziva walks down the stairs. It's something funny to me about that, because, like, you know what's going through his mind at this point. You know, like, he's sitting there thinking, okay, is she real? Is this my mind messing with me again? If she's real, did she fake her death? Why is she here? I don't think I'd be seeing her in my mind. What's going on? Like, I, I just could not imagine being in that scenario where you've been seeing somebody who's dead, you know, for this entire episode, and at the end of it, you see somebody that was supposedly dead, but I'm pretty sure she's actually alive. I don't know. I wish we had a microphone in Gibbs's brain so he could just hear the fuck is going on, something like that. But anyways, so ultimately, it was a pretty good episode. I just feel like I didn't connect with it. I didn't resonate with what was going on because I felt like Fornell was going a little too crazy. Gibbs, it felt like was going a little too crazy, and the case itself didn't grip me like it should have. I didn't feel like everything was, you know, connected like I should have. It didn't feel connected until the end of the episode. And I want to feel like it's connected throughout. You know, I got the idea that, okay, this is obviously a very personal case, and that ties in with the theme recently, which has been making things personal. But at the same time, it didn't feel quite right. It didn't feel like it really fully connected to this idea of making things personal. Fernell was obviously taking things very personal, but he was kind of showing why Rule 10 doesn't work. And Gibbs was kind of in, I don't know, like he was sort of up in the air about the whole thing. I don't know why I'm tired. It's only 6 o'clock. It's not a good sign. But yeah, it was okay though. I'm curious to see what's going on with Ziva. I'm curious to see, like, honestly, I might have to go back and, like, either do a quick checkup on all of the episodes or do a rewatch of some of the episodes that I reviewed for, just to kind of remind myself what happened with Ziva, like when she left the show, why, and what happened with her dying. I do wonder if Tony's going to come back too now that she's involved, because I know Tony, again, I forgot to look this up, but I know Tony was watching after her kid. So I'll definitely be curious to see why she decided to come back now. if it has something to do with this guy that Gibbs is looking into, this the guy who's been pushing all these drugs, or if it's something completely unrelated that I don't know. I guess we'll find out about. But yeah, overall, pretty solid episode. And honestly, it ends what has been a very back and forth, up and down type of season. In all honesty, for a lot of the season, I felt like things weren't going well. I felt like they weren't doing a great job. I was expecting more. I was expecting it to be more enjoyable. I was trying to. I wanted more fun. And it just, I don't know, the jokes didn't land as much. A lot of it came down to, again, I've talked about it a lot this season, but Casey, they tried to make her just like Abby. And she's not as good as Abby. She doesn't fit with the team as well. Honestly, again, I don't know if this is her, if this is the director, but the acting for Casey is just not good. It's like they want you to laugh. It's like they want you to find her funny, but she's not really. You can see the jokes coming from a mile away. The awkwardness, it doesn't really work. Some people do awkward humor very well. That kind of like sitting there silently and then just okay, and then just slowly turning away, when everybody's not laughing at you. Sometimes that can work, but when that's all you have, and whenever you're acting, can't really bring that out, I just don't think that's a good character, and especially when that's all her character is really based on for this season. Like, I was expecting maybe to get an episode with her being the central focus, but aside from the one where we found out about her father, we don't know anything about her. And that's the thing. You want me to connect with her as a character. You want me to accept that she's on the team and be like, yeah, Casey, she's a part of the team now, isn't she? Yeah, cool. You want me to do that, but you've not given me any reasons to want her on the team. You've not given me any reasons why I should like her character. You just pretty much put her in there as the quirky side character that we're all supposed to laugh at how quirky and awkward she is, but it's not funny. And it's a huge problem, and honestly, it really, I feel like, is one of the major problems with this season. The other major problem I feel like is the first half of the season just, I don't know, the writing wasn't as good on the cases, the characters didn't really connect as well. I don't know, they just made a lot of mistakes at the beginning of the season that I feel like were avoidable. You could have written better episodes, you could have connected it all to a bigger story, but they didn't. They kind of just went through the motions. By the end of it, I was kind of connected. I started to pick up on some of what they were doing. I was trying to follow what was going on. They actually did have my attention. But unfortunately, that was only half of a season. So you can't just have half of the season be good and then the rest of it not. You have to try to make it at least enjoyable for the entire season. So we'll see where the next season goes. I don't know when I'm going to get back around to it. Because, to be honest, I got a lot of shows that I still have to watch in NCIS. Now that I'm caught up on this season, now got some time to watch some other things. So I'm kind of deciding what to do next. But, yeah. Overall, though, pretty average season. Not the worst season yet, but by far not the best. It's pretty down there. So, but anyways, that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts in these 3 episodes and the season as a whole? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future NCIS reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.